They thought they could walk away. They thought they could break you and the universe wouldn't flinch. They thought they could hurt you and never face the weight of what they did. But let me tell you something about the moral structure of existence. It is not neutral. There is a profound balance built into the architecture of being, and when you disturb that balance, when you sow destruction, betrayal, and cruelty, you do not escape. You delay, you postpone, but you never escape. This is the year they start to feel it, the payback year, not because you're vengeful, not because you're cruel, but because truth over time claws its way back into the open. You see, you didn't just suffer, you grew, you didn't collapse, you transformed. And while they laughed, while they discarded your loyalty like trash, something was happening beneath the surface. The pressure was building, the silence was maturing you, the darkness was carving a stronger version of you, and now you're not the same person they walked away from. You are sharper, clearer, more composed, and far more dangerous to those who misjudged you. You learned restraint. You learned patience. And those are not signs of weakness. They are signs of tremendous strength. The world is full of people who think they can break others without consequence, that they can damage a soul and move on untouched. But pain has memory, and pain has a voice, and it speaks through the transformation of its victims. That's what they never understood, that in trying to destroy you, they handed you the tools for your own reconstruction. And here you are rising, slowly, steadily, like the tide, quiet but inevitable. And as you rise, they fall, not because you forced it, but because they became slaves to their own lies, their own guilt, their own delusions. You see, life has a way of making people face the very pain they've inflicted. It doesn't always happen immediately, but it always happens. The payback year is not about revenge. It's about correction. It's about restoration. The scales that were tipped are being rebalanced. And the people who threw you into the fire are now starting to feel the heat themselves. And here's the truth they can't escape. You were real. You were loyal. You showed up with honesty, with heart, and with intention so rare it unsettled their shallow games. They mistook your silence for surrender, your patience for permission, but you were simply waiting for the storm inside you to settle into clarity. And now that it has, now that you see who you are and what you carry, they'll have to face what they've done. But this isn't about theatrics. This is deeper than that. This is about how the human conscience cannot outrun guilt, how betrayal festers in the minds of those who committed it, how every sleepless night they endure now is a whisper of your memory, how your composure becomes their confusion, and your success, that becomes their greatest regret. This year isn't about shouting your wins. It's about letting your life speak, letting your growth be the echo of every injustice, letting your peace be the answer to their chaos, letting your evolution be the judgment they never saw coming. They will see you stronger, wiser, untouchable, and they will realize what they've lost. But by then, it will be too late, because you won't be available for their redemption story. You won't be a character in their fantasy of second chances. You've walked through fire to become someone they no longer deserve access to. And that's the true payback, to become so whole that their damage no longer defines you, to rise so high that they can't reach you even if they wanted to reclaim your power without ever lifting a hand against them, because the universe does not forget, and the deeper laws of being always bring back what was sent out. So let them sit with what they've done. Let them wrestle with their own silence. Let them pretend they're fine, because pretending is all they have left. You, on the other hand, have everything ahead of you, not just success, but integrity, not just recognition, but inner peace. And that makes you dangerous in the best way possible, because you're no longer trying to prove your worth to anyone. You're living it, quietly, powerfully, irrefutably. They'll pay, not because you demand it, but because they created the debt. And you'll walk forward with clean hands, knowing justice wasn't yours to force, but it was yours to witness. The payback year is coming, and this time, it's not about getting even. It's about getting free. There's something people forget when they act in selfish, deceitful, or destructive ways. They forget that this life is not merely a playground of arbitrary events where consequences can be indefinitely avoided or manipulated by appearances. They forget that beneath the chaos, there is order, psychological, spiritual, and even moral order. And when that order is violated, when someone disturbs the delicate balance of trust, truth, and human decency, there is always a cost. The cost isn't always immediate. It doesn't show up like a fine in the mail or a police officer at the door, but it accumulates quietly and invisibly like a spiritual debt that has no loophole for escape. You see, when someone lies to you, when they manipulate you, when they betray your goodwill, they're not just wounding you. They are tearing at the fabric of something larger, something sacred. They are violating the principles that hold life together: honesty, loyalty, compassion, mutual responsibility. That kind of moral violation has consequences not just in the social realm, but deep within the psyche. The human soul cannot tolerate too much disorder without starting to fragment, and yet people deceive themselves. They convince themselves that if they just keep moving forward, changing environments, switching relationships, burying their guilt, they can outrun what they've done. But that's not how it works. Reality isn't blind, and time, though patient, is not merciful to lies. There is a psychological law, almost like a law of gravity, that ensures what is done in darkness will eventually be dragged into the light. Not because someone exposes it necessarily, but because the internal world of the deceiver starts to rot under the weight of what they've done. Anxiety creeps in, sleepless nights become frequent. Trust in others fades because deep down they know they are not trustworthy. Their perception of the world becomes corrupted by projection because they expect betrayal from others since betrayal lives within them. That is the moral mechanism of justice. You see, we often think of justice in external terms: courtrooms, punishments, public shame. But there's another kind of justice, one that is more personal, more precise, and far more terrifying. It's the justice that lives within the human conscience, the kind that can't be silenced by denial forever, the kind that turns every quiet moment into a courtroom. So when we talk about the payback year, we're not talking about revenge. We're not talking about childish retaliation or returning evil for evil. That's not justice. That's reaction. What we're talking about is deeper. We're talking about the natural reckoning that occurs when the moral order of the universe realigns itself, when the truth, long suppressed, begins to rise, when the guilt, long buried, starts to eat away at the foundation of the person who caused harm. And here's where it gets profound. This justice doesn't come because you seek it. It comes because you no longer need to. That's the paradox. The moment you let go of vengeance and embrace your own healing, your own growth, your own upward path, that's when the moral universe begins to move. Because you're no longer adding chaos to chaos. You're aligning yourself with order, with meaning, with strength. And that invites a different kind of justice, one that doesn't need noise to be heard. Those who wronged you, those who thought they could violate your trust and walk away untouched, they don't realize they made a deal with something far more demanding than your emotions. They made a deal with the structure of reality itself. And that structure has a way of demanding payment eventually and inevitably. It may take a year, it may take longer, but it always comes. Because life is not built to allow evil to prosper forever. It just isn't. Even if it looks like they're doing fine, even if they laugh, move on, find new people, underneath that facade is a storm-gathering force. You can't build a peaceful life on a foundation of cruelty. You can't escape the consequences of betraying another soul, especially one that was kind to you, loyal to you, and patient with you. Now, people will say, well, sometimes bad people win. And yes, temporarily, that may be true. There are unjust successes. There are liars who climb ladders. There are betrayers who appear to thrive. But watch closely. Look deeper You'll see instability. You'll see fear. You'll see an inability to form real bonds. You'll see a desperate need to control the narrative because they know that if truth ever got out, the image would shatter. Their so-called peace is built on a house of cards. And truth, it only needs a breath to bring it crashing down. That is the genius of the moral structure of reality. It doesn't strike fast. It strikes true. And that's far more powerful because while they wasted time running, hiding, and pretending, you were healing, you were transforming, you were aligning yourself with something real. And now, as this year unfolds, you will begin to see that justice, not as a fantasy of revenge, but as a reality of balance, has already begun. They'll feel it in their isolation. They'll feel it in their confusion when their tricks no longer work. They'll feel it in the faces of people who see through them now. They'll feel it in the silence where your voice used to be, a silence they thought was weakness, but now realize was wisdom. So let them pay, not because you forced their hand, but because they wrote a debt into the universe when they mistook your kindness for weakness. And now that universe has come to collect. You don't need to raise your voice. You don't need to throw stones. Just keep walking, keep building, keep rising, because the higher you go in truth, the harder it is for lies to survive around you. This is the year the balance returns. This is the year the moral architecture of being reasserts itself. And this is the year they learn you don't damage what's sacred without paying in full. Revenge is a dangerous temptation. It's the desire to lash out to make someone feel exactly what they made you feel. But here's the problem with that. It keeps you tied to the very person who hurt you. It keeps you orbiting the betrayal, forever bound to it by a cord of emotional reaction. And that is no victory. That's just another kind of imprisonment. But growth, that's a different thing altogether. Real growth is quiet. It's not loud or theatrical. It doesn't announce itself. It doesn't demand attention, but its effects are undeniable. And when you've been broken, when you've been discarded, overlooked, betrayed, your growth becomes your silent, unstoppable revenge. When they hurt you, when they manipulated you or took you for granted, they thought they had power over you. They assumed you'd collapse, beg, shrink. They expected you to stay the same version of yourself, dependent, wounded, easy to control. But something remarkable happens to a human being when they hit bottom and choose not to stay there. You begin to build, slowly, painfully, but deliberately. At first, your healing looks like nothing. It's just survival, getting out of bed, holding back tears, trying to silence the noise in your mind. But that's the beginning of transformation. That's the soil where strength grows. Not in success, not in applause, but in the hidden battles no one sees. While they were busy pretending they'd won, you were doing the inner work they were too afraid to even begin. You were confronting your pain head on. You were facing the terrifying questions they always ran from. And you were discovering something they will never understand, that your power was never in how loudly you could respond. It was in how deeply you could rebuild. And here's the truth. They're watching. Maybe not openly, maybe not directly, but they're watching. They're wondering how you survived, how you kept going when they expected you to fall apart, how you got stronger when you had every reason to stay broken. That's what eats at them. That's what keeps them up at night, because the person they tried to destroy is no longer available. You've outgrown their reach. You see, growth is terrifying to people who refuse to evolve. Your composure unnerves them. Your silence unsettles them. Your progress is proof that they were wrong, not just about you, but about the world. Because in their mind, cruelty works, manipulation wins, lies protect, but your transformation challenges all of that. You are living, breathing evidence that the human spirit, when aligned with truth and discipline, cannot be crushed. It can only be refined. And that's why your growth is the ultimate revenge, not because it hurts them directly, but because it exposes their failure without you saying a word. They thought they could control your story, but now you're writing chapters they'll never be part of. They thought they could damage your self-worth, but now you walk with dignity they never expected. They thought they could erase your value, but now your presence, your clarity, your strength announces it without needing permission. There's something deeply biblical about this transformation, rising from the pit, ascending from exile, emerging from the wilderness, not with vengeance, but with vision. You've gone through fire, and instead of burning, you forged a new identity. And that identity is not bitter. It's not vengeful. It's focused. It's disciplined. It's dangerous in the best way possible because it no longer seeks validation from the people who once denied it. Let them wonder how you did it. Let them wrestle with the silence. Let them choke on the realization that their absence didn't destroy you, it freed you. And now you're building something they'll never touch, a life of truth, a life of peace, a life of integrity, a life rooted so deeply in your own values that no storm they bring can shake it. And as you continue to grow, you realize something else. You don't want revenge anymore. You don't want them to suffer the way you suffered. You want distance. You want clarity. You want to protect your energy and channel it into something real. That's when you truly win, not when you hurt them back, but when you no longer care to. Your growth has changed the game. You're not playing it anymore. You're writing new rules, and those rules are built on boundaries, self-respect, purpose. You're not the same person who was betrayed. You're not even trying to be. You're someone new, someone better, someone forged in honesty, pain, and the kind of quiet courage most people run from. They will feel that, even if they never say it, even if they pretend not to notice. They will feel your absence where your loyalty used to be. They will feel your strength in the space where your dependence used to be. And they will feel your peace, oh yes, your peace, like a mirror reflecting back all the chaos they created but could never manage. That's the payback. That's the moment the scales tip. Not when they hurt the way you did, but when they realize they've lost something they can never replace. Not just you, but the version of you that cared, that waited, that gave, that forgave. That version is gone, and what stands in its place is something they don't know how to reach. And deep down they know they're not equipped to handle it. Your growth is the evidence that good people don't stay broken. It's the proof that truth wins, not loudly, not immediately, but completely. So keep rising, keep evolving, not to prove them wrong, but to prove you were always more than they saw. That is the real revenge, becoming untouchable by becoming your truest, strongest self. And the louder they stay silent, the more your growth will speak. People believe that if they lie quickly enough, if they move fast enough, if they distract others just long enough, they can avoid the consequences of their choices. They think that if they craft a false image, dress it up with charm, and repeat the narrative often enough, they can bury the truth. But there's one thing they always underestimate: time. Time is the most relentless and unforgiving force in existence. It does not forget, it does not flinch, and it does not lie. You see, intentions are invisible. You can smile at someone and still be plotting their destruction. You can pretend to be loyal while slowly undermining them behind closed doors. You can dress betrayal in polite words and wrap manipulation in affection. But none of those illusions are sustainable over the long term, because time works like a moral X-ray. It reveals slowly, precisely, irrefutably. That's what they don't understand. They think they've gotten away with something because there were no immediate consequences. You didn't fight back, you didn't retaliate, you didn't scream in the streets. Maybe you were even silent, maybe you walked away with dignity, and they mistook your stillness for defeat. But what they didn't realize was that your silence was not surrender, it was the calm before the moral storm, because time is always watching and time is always working. Time pulls back the curtain. It shows patterns. It unveils hypocrisy. It takes the hidden seeds people planted in secrecy and grows them into full-blown outcomes. And that's the justice of it all. You don't have to seek revenge. You don't even have to expose them. All you have to do is wait and keep living truthfully, because when you stay grounded in integrity, time does the work for you. People who harm others often live on borrowed time. They wear masks, collect admiration, surround themselves with enablers. They might rise quickly, speak confidently, and perform decently under superficial scrutiny. But here's the thing about lies. They require constant maintenance. And the longer the lie is held up, the more energy it drains from the person who tells it. Eventually, their mask starts to crack, not because someone tore it off, but because they can no longer hold it up. And you don't have to push, you don't have to chase justice, you don't have to scream for someone to see the truth. Just stay steady, stay aligned, keep your conduct clean, because time has a way of making everything visible, especially the rot people try to hide. Those who harmed you may pretend to move on. They may project a new persona, pretending to be healed, innocent, or wise, but time doesn't only expose lies to others, it exposes lies to the liar. That's the real torment. Eventually, the deceiver starts to see their own reflection, and they don't like what they see. Guilt begins as a whisper, but over time it becomes a scream, and no distraction, no pleasure, no new relationship can silence it. You see, people can manipulate others, but they can't manipulate time. That's the fundamental truth here. They can rewrite a story, frame you as the villain, create confusion, plant doubt, and maybe they succeed for a while, but with enough time, people start asking questions. Inconsistencies emerge, reputations begin to falter, and the truth, like water, finds a way through even the smallest cracks. And that's when your strength becomes undeniable. Because you didn't crumble. You didn't compromise your values to get even. You chose the harder path. You took the internal route, growth, healing, evolution. And while time revealed their corruption, it also revealed your transformation. What they tried to destroy has now become your foundation. What they tried to bury has now become your platform. That's the beauty of time. It works on both ends. It exposes the manipulator and it elevates the one who endured. Time shows the world that your suffering was not weakness. It was the beginning of something greater. And their cruelty, it wasn't cleverness. It was the beginning of their unraveling. You have to trust this process, not blindly, not passively, but with the kind of wisdom that understands how the world truly operates. You don't need to expose anyone. Life does that on your behalf. People eventually reveal themselves. You just have to let the mask fall on its own. And when it does, when the truth rises, when the facade collapses, when the guilt eats away at their sleep, they'll realize something far more painful than being punished. They'll realize they were wrong about you, about themselves, about the very game they were playing. And by then, it will be too late, because time not only exposes intentions, it changes dynamics. They won't be able to undo the damage. They won't be able to rewind the clock, and they certainly won't be able to re-enter your life as if nothing happened. That's the cost of deceit. Time demands payment in full. So let them underestimate you. Let them mischaracterize you. Let them fabricate their stories, because every lie is a debt owed to the truth, and time is the collector. Quiet, patient, and absolutely ruthless. And what should you do during this waiting? You build, you grow, you become so strong that you never need to look back. You become so honest that lies can't stick to your name. You surround yourself with truth, peace, purpose. That is the ultimate payback, not because it crushes them, but because it frees you. In the end, time is the courtroom, and your life, your honest, grounded, resilient life, is the testimony. So trust it, live it, and let time expose what intentions tried so desperately to hide. Guilt is not just an emotion. It's not merely a fleeting feeling you can numb with entertainment or bury beneath new distractions. Guilt is a moral force, subtle, persistent, and deeply embedded in the human psyche. It is the consequence of violating one's conscience, the emotional residue of having done something fundamentally wrong. And the truth is, no matter how much someone pretends, no matter how well they hide it, guilt always comes back around. You can't deceive your own soul forever. You can lie to others, you can craft a narrative, you can get validation from people who only see the surface, but you cannot lie to the deepest part of yourself without paying a price. That's the thing those who betrayed you fail to understand. They may feel victorious in the moment, they may feel powerful as they walk away from the wreckage they caused, but deep within them, beneath the ego, beneath the posturing, something starts to fracture. Because we were not designed to be at peace when we've done wrong. Our psychology is built with internal boundaries. When we cross them, we don't walk away clean. We leave behind wounds in others, but we also take something with us. Guilt. And guilt is not passive. Guilt is a shadow that follows a person long after the damage is done. It doesn't scream. It whispers. It doesn't announce its presence. It waits, but it always returns. And the more someone tries to escape it, the louder it gets. They'll try to drown it out, maybe with noise, maybe with addictions, maybe with a new relationship, or by keeping themselves perpetually distracted. They'll even try to justify their actions, twisting the narrative so they can pretend they were right, or that you deserved it, or that they were just doing what was best for them. But deep down, they know the truth. And that truth is a wound in their integrity that won't heal until it's acknowledged. And in many cases, it never is. This is where the real suffering begins. Not for you, but for them. Because guilt corrodes the soul over time. It eats away at clarity. It disrupts peace. It poisons relationships. You cannot give what you do not have. And someone who is carrying unaddressed guilt cannot offer real love, cannot experience real joy, and cannot escape their own conscience, no matter how far they run. You, on the other hand, you endured. You were the one who was wronged, and you might have carried pain, sorrow, and confusion, but you carried it honestly, and because of that, your suffering led to growth. Their guilt, however, leads to erosion. That's the difference. Your pain became the foundation of transformation. Their guilt becomes a prison of regret. And you don't even have to witness it to know it's happening. Guilt doesn't need an audience to do its work. It's internal. It plays out behind closed doors. It surfaces in small ways: restlessness, anxiety, sudden anger, broken sleep. It shows up in relationships that keep failing, in the inability to trust, in the quiet moments when the mind replays the past like a film they can't stop watching. And they will watch it over and over again because their mind won't let them forget. You see, guilt is the soul's way of demanding reconciliation. It's a signal that something is out of alignment. And the longer it's ignored, the louder it becomes. The person who hurt you may act like they're unaffected, but watch their life unfold over time. You'll begin to see the cracks. You'll hear the doubt in their voice. You'll notice the instability in their choices, because no one walks away from betrayal unscarred. Not even the betrayer. And here's the truly ironic part. Many of them will try to project that guilt back onto you. They'll blame you for what they did. They'll rewrite history to make themselves the victim, because facing their own guilt is too painful. But again, that strategy only works temporarily. Eventually, reality wins. Eventually, they see themselves clearly, and that's when the guilt becomes unbearable. There will come a night when they lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, and your face comes to mind, not in bitterness, but in regret, not in anger, but in shame. And they'll remember not just what they did, but who they were when they did it. And the realization that they destroyed something good, that they walked away from someone real, will hit them harder than any punishment you could have imagined, because they're not just mourning what they lost. They're mourning who they chose to be. That's how guilt works. It's personal, it's precise, and it doesn't leave until it's dealt with. Some people will try to numb it for the rest of their lives, running from relationship to relationship, city to city, persona to persona, trying to escape the truth they carry inside. But it always follows, because there is no escape from the consequences of a corrupted conscience. So while they wrestle with their guilt, What should you do? You heal, you grow, you build something better, not to prove anything to them, but because that's what you deserve. You don't need to carry the pain forever. You don't need to wait for their apology or their confession. Their guilt is not your burden to manage. It's theirs. And believe me, it's heavy. In fact, your healing makes their guilt even louder. The more you thrive, the more it reminds them of the destruction they caused. The more peace you find, the more it highlights the chaos they live with. The more you walk forward, the more they're pulled backward into the reality of what they've done. And that's the justice. That's the reckoning, not because you inflicted it, but because that's what guilt does. So trust that. Trust that guilt is real, that it works in silence, that it never forgets. Let it do its job. Let them sit with what they did. Let them wrestle with the truth they tried to bury, because eventually guilt always comes back around. And when it does, it speaks louder than any revenge ever could. There is a strange paradox in life. Those who harmed you are often not tormented by your retaliation, but by your silence. Not by your confrontation, but by your absence. Not by your destruction, but by your peace. You see, when people do wrong, when they manipulate, lie, betray, they often expect a reaction. They anticipate outrage, drama, or some emotional breakdown that confirms they still have control over your emotional state. Because as long as they can provoke you, they can convince themselves they still matter in your story. But when you stop responding, when you stop justifying yourself, when you stop seeking closure and begin to cultivate your own peace, that's when their grip dissolves. And that's when the consequences they never anticipated begin to manifest. Your peace, that hard-won, deeply earned peace, is the final chapter of the story they tried to write for you. It's the proof that they failed, not just to break you, but to define you. And that reality becomes their new torment, because deep down they wanted to believe they had the final word. They wanted to believe their betrayal would leave you broken, bitter, perhaps even lost. But your serenity, your stillness, your ability to move on without seeking revenge, that becomes a mirror reflecting their failure. And this peace doesn't come cheaply. It's forged in pain, in sleepless nights, in unanswered questions, in silent prayers. It's not a superficial calm you slap on for social media. It's the kind of deep, soul-level peace that emerges only after you've walked through hell and refused to stay there. And when people see that kind of peace, especially those who tried to rob you of it, it unsettles them. Because peace is power. True peace is not passive. It's not weakness. It's not the absence of conflict. It is the resolution of conflict. It is what happens when your inner world becomes stable, steady, and untouchable, regardless of the storms around you. And nothing is more confusing to a manipulator, a betrayer, or an abuser than a person who no longer reacts. They don't understand it. They don't know how to interpret it, because your peace means you no longer need their validation. You no longer crave their approval. You no longer respond to their games. You've risen above the emotional battlefield they tried to trap you in, and in doing so, you've left them alone with themselves, and that is a far harsher punishment than anything you could ever say or do. You see, your peace exposes their chaos. Your stability highlights their instability. Your joy becomes a reminder of what they lost and what they can no longer disturb. And that's when their guilt, their shame, their regret, things they've worked hard to bury begin to surface, because it's hard to pretend you did nothing wrong when the person you wronged is now thriving without you. They thought your silence was weakness, but now they see it was your awakening. They thought your stillness was defeat, but now they realize it was your preparation. And the life you're building, the calm, focused, purpose-driven life, is the life they never imagined you'd have the strength to create. And it haunts them, not because you hurt them, but because they hurt you and you walked away unshaken. They'll play it cool. They'll act indifferent. They may even mock you from afar. But make no mistake, They feel it. They feel the weight of your peace like a stone in their chest, because it reminds them that they no longer have access to the version of you they abused. That version is gone, and in its place stands someone whole, someone powerful, someone beyond reach. And here's the deeper truth. They never had peace to begin with. People who are at peace don't destroy others. People who are secure don't betray. People who are whole don't try to fracture what's good. So when they see peace in you, it's not just a loss, it's a revelation. It shows them everything they lack, everything they tried to gain through manipulation, everything they thought they could take from you. But peace can't be stolen. It can't be faked. It must be earned through discipline, through self-reflection, through suffering that teaches rather than consumes. And once you have it, it becomes your shield. You no longer chase explanations. You no longer beg to be understood. You simply live fully, authentically, unapologetically. And that is what breaks them, because they expected you to collapse. Instead, you flourished. They expected you to spiral. Instead, you evolved. They expected you to crumble under the weight of what they did. Instead, you built something beautiful from the rubble. And every breath you take in peace is a reminder of their miscalculation. It's not about vengeance. It's about transcendence. It's not about hurting them back. It's about reaching a level of self-mastery where their opinions, their judgments, their past actions hold no power over you anymore.